Hello, students, and welcome to our lesson on x and y intercepts of a linear equation. So we'll start with our do now. We'll answer the question about why we are better together. Our objective will be to explore the x and y intercepts of a linear equation. Our essential question, we have three. How can I identify the x and y intercepts from a graph? How can I find the x and y intercepts algebraically? And how can I graph by those x and y intercepts? So after you watch this video, or while you're watching this video, make sure you complete the two assigned pages. And when you do that, I want you to pay special attention to the form of the solution, okay, how you write your answer, and the placement of the zero when you write your answer. Our exit ticket, we will complete these two sentences that talk about how to find the x-intercept of an equation and the y-intercept of an equation, and make sure you turn in your work. That's where you get your some of that participation credit. Sorry about that. Get back to my page. For homework, you have homework 4.4, which is x and y intercepts. Remember, those who succeed and get those A pluses have their cameras on. I'm offering that extra credit. Please respond when you're called, whether it's at the beginning, middle, or end of the period, and submit your completed lesson work by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, Wednesday, we've begun talking about this. This is an important day for you on Wednesday. Even if you know where you want to go to high school, it's a good idea to check into some of the other high schools. Plus, you're going to get attendance credit. So make sure that you check in on Wednesday, December 16th for the virtual high school fair. There will be 5 high schools that Ms. Montalvo has put together for you guys. You will get meeting links, and visiting the high schools counts as attendance credit. And something else I wanted to mention to you, the things that you do in algebra class now build the foundation for an amazing reference letter from the teacher. A lot of these high schools do ask for a recommendation, and I'm happy to do that. And the better you do, the better that letter will be. So for our do now, Ken Blanchard has said, none of us is as smart as all of us. Why is it that we are better together? Why is it, the old adage, 2 heads are better than 1? What happens when 2 or more people get together to solve a problem? What if you have one genius? Why is that never as good as 2 people together? Even if one person, a genius, is working by themselves. Sometimes when you're working by yourself, you don't see the forest for the trees. You don't see that other way to approach a problem. You don't see that other solution. Collaborative work is really the way work gets done and gets done successfully. It's what it takes to run a business, a classroom, and a school system. Our exit ticket today, we will talk about how we find the x-intercept of an equation or the y-intercept of an equation. So we'll get back to that. So let's get started. So our topic for today is x and y intercepts. Give you a little cursive writing today. And this is, in case you can't read it, this is what I just wrote, x and y intercepts. So what is the point? Let's talk about the x-intercept first. So the x-intercept is the point at which the line intersects the x-axis, okay? Here's our x-axis in green. The y-intercept is the point at which the line intersects the y-axis. So here's our y-axis in red. And we have a graph, and it intersects the y-axis here and the x-axis here. So let's look at those points and let's label them. So this is point, remember, x is first, y is second. So this is point 0, 8, and this is point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0. You see the difference there? So the x-intercept for this linear equation, remember linear equation has the word line in it. So the x-intercept of the graph that you see to the right is written like this. It's 0.8, 0. The y-intercept, I'm going to abbreviate it this time, is 0, 8. So now that's how we look at a graph and we identify where that graph crosses the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Remember, these are not zeros of an equation, okay? So don't get confused with zeros of an equation. Zeros of an equation are only x-intercepts. So we can find the x-intercepts algebraically. We don't just find them by looking at a graph. So to find the x-intercept of an equation, what we do is we set y equal to 0 and solve for x. So we set y equal to 0 and solve for x. Okay, so what do you think, going by that same logic, how are we going to find the y-intercept? Well, here we're going to set x equal to 0 and solve for y. So let's look at our first example. Our example asks us to find the x and y-intercept of the equation y equals 3x plus 6. So we can see that this equation is written in slope-intercept form. So let's find the x-intercept first. And I'll label my work as I go along. Here's the x-intercept. So I'm going to set y equal to 0. So 0 equals 3x plus 6. Now I'm going to solve for x. So I'll add 6 to both sides. Negative 6 equals 3x. I'll divide both sides by 3. And x, right over here, equals negative 2. Now, what is the x-intercept? Negative 2, 0. And that's the answer for that portion. Now we'll do the y-intercept. Label your work. Now we're going to set x equal to 0 and solve for y. So y equals, please use parentheses when you make substitutions, 3 times 0 plus 6. So y equals 6, and we write that as 0, 6. And that's our y-intercept. So our x-intercept is negative 2, 0. Our y-intercept is 0, 6. And if you were to graph that on Desmos, I recommend that you do that right now. You would see the x-intercept of negative 2, 0 and the y-intercept of 0, 6. So let's look at the examples. I'll try the first. We'll start with the first one. Remember, we're solving two problems here, the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So we have y equals negative x plus 5. So the x-intercept, we set y equal to 0. 0 equals negative x plus 5. So we subtract 5 from both sides. And we have negative 5 equals negative x. We divide both sides by negative 1. And x equals 5. So our x-intercept is 5, 0. Now let's work with the y-intercept. So we substitute 0 for x. We set x to 0 and solve for y. So now negative 0, there's no such thing as negative 0, it's just 0. So y equals 5. So the y-intercept is 0, 5. So the x-intercept will always have a y value of 0. The y-intercept will always have an x value of 0. So let's look at number 2, y equals 1/2 x minus 8. I'm going to work outside here a little bit strong, too crowded. So the x-intercept, I'm going to set y to 0. 0 equals 1/2 x minus 8. And subtract 8 add 8, to both sides. 8 equals 1/2 x. Multiply both sides by 2. 16 equals x. So my x-intercept is 16, 0. Now we'll do the y-intercept. So y equals, we'll set x to 0, 1/2 0 minus 8, and 1/2 times 0 is 0, y equals negative 8, and the y-intercept is 0, negative 8. So try the next one on your own. So I hope you tried it on your own. Let's do the x-intercept, where we set y equal to 0. 0 equals negative 4/3 x plus 2, and we'll subtract 2 from both sides. Negative 2 equals negative 4/3 x. If we multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 4/3, 3/4, negative 3/4, we end up, this and this cancel, and we end up with x equals 3/2, and it will be positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. So our x-intercept is 3/2, 0. Now we'll do the y-intercept. Well, we'll substitute x for 0, so y equals negative 4/3 0 plus 2, parentheses, and this becomes 0, so y equals 2, and my y-intercept is 0, 2. Okay, let's continue on with 3 more problems like this. I highly recommend you try them on your own and then just use the video to check your work and build those skills. So the x-intercept, first we will set y to 0. So x minus 0 equals 2, and of course x equals 2, so our x-intercept is 2, 0. Now the y-intercept, I should have labeled my work over there. This was the x-intercept here. So the y-intercept, I'll set x equal to 0. So we have 0 minus y equals 2. You notice I didn't have to put it in slope-intercept form. That's not necessary. So that's negative y equals 2. And if we divide both sides by negative 1, y equals negative 2. So the y-intercept is 0, comma, negative 2. Okay, number 5, 3x minus 2y equals 12. I'll do the x-intercept over here, so I have a little bit more room to work. So it would be 3x minus 2 times 0 equals 12, and negative 2 times 0 is 0, so that would give us 3x equals 12, and we divide both sides by 3, and x equals 4, for an x-intercept of 4, comma, 0. Now we'll do the y-intercept, and it would be 3, we'll substitute 0 for the x, minus 2y equals 12, and 3 times 0 is 0, so negative 2y equals 12. Divide both sides by negative 2, and y equals negative 6. So our y-intercept is 0, negative 6, and a good way to check these answers, students, is to go ahead and graph them on Desmos. That's a wonderful way to do it. And number 6, 8x plus 10y equals negative 10. So we'll do the x-intercept first. So that would be 8x plus 10 times 0 equals negative 10. And that would be 8x equals negative 10. And we divide both sides by 8. And we have x equals, and I'm going to reduce this negative 10 over 8 to negative 5 over 4. So our x-intercept is negative 5 over 4, comma, 0. And now the y-intercept. So we'll have 8 times 0 plus 10y equals negative 10. We'll solve for y now. So 8 times 0 is 0. We have 10y equals negative 10. Divide both sides by 10. And y equals negative 1. So our y-intercept is 0, comma, negative 1. Now finally, we want to be able to graph by intercept. So we're asked to find the x and y intercept of each equation. And we're going to graph the equation using its intercepts. So let's find the x-intercept first. Set y to 0. So x plus 0 equals 3, x equals 3. So that would be the point 3, 0, and that would be right here. Now we'll do the y-intercept. So it would be 0 plus y equals 3, or y equals 3, and that would be the point 0, 3, which is right here. Now we can take this and we can draw a smooth line through these points. Let me see if I can do it a little more accurately than that. And maybe using a nicer color. So here we go. And one more adjustment I need to make. I need to have an arrow on both sides. So there we go. Now let's draw that. Perfect. Okay, practice makes perfect. Okay, let's do number 8. So the x-intercept would be, well, if I set y to 0, I would have negative 4x equals 20. I divide by negative 4, and x would equal negative 5. So our x-intercept would be negative 5, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5, 0 is right there. Now let's work on the y-intercept. First, I'm going to erase where I drew on my equation. And the y-intercept would be, so if I set x equal to 0, then I have 5y equals 20. I divide both sides by 5, and y equals 4. So I would have the point 0, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's connect that with a smooth line. And there's our graph of the equation. So try these next two on your own before you come back to the video. Pause the video and try them on your own. You can do this. Okay, let's work on the x-intercept for number 9. 9x minus 15y equals 45. So the x-intercept, so if I set y to 0, then all of this goes away. And I have 9x equals 45. Divide both sides by 9, and x equals 5. So my, my x-intercept is 5, 0. And I'll plot that right here. Now let's work on the y-intercept. And if I set x to 0, then all of this goes away, and I have negative 15y equals 45, and I divide by negative 15, and y equals negative 3. So that point would be 0, negative 3, which would be right here. And let's connect our line. There we go. Not exactly perfect. Pretty close. The graphing is always a challenge for me, students. I'm not a great artist. I noticed my students who are really good with the drawing and the art make beautiful graphs, and I look forward to Unit 4 and beyond where I can see those gorgeous graphs. Okay, number 10. So the x-intercept, we set y to 0, so we end up with, let's label our work. We end up with 2x equals 7. We divide both sides by 2, and x equals 7 over 2. So the point we're going to plot is 7 over 2, comma 0. So 7 over 2, that's 3.5. So we're going to go right about here. Now let's work on the y-intercept. Which would, if we set x equal to 0, we would have negative y equals 7, and we divide both sides by negative 1. Y equals negative 7, so our y-intercept is 0, negative 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's our y-intercept. And let's go ahead and graph that as neatly as we can. Okay, so let's go back to our exit ticket and complete that. Our work is just about done for today. I hope you like graphing. So our exit ticket, and we need a color that's going to show up on here. Never wrote with the white. Let's try that. So to find the x-intercept of an equation, set y, oops, set y equal to 0 and solve for x. Okay, to find the y-intercept of an equation, set x equal to 0 and solve for y. I hope you are enjoying our continued exploration in algebra, and many of you are starting to work very, very hard. I'm super proud of you, and unfortunately, it takes practice. So make sure you do the homework for tonight, which is homework for X and Y intercepts. It's a 2-page document, but it's a lot of graphs, so that it's not a lot of problems. It's only 16 problems, but most of those are graphing. So get your colored pencils out and have a good time with that, and make sure you practice, because as you do, you'll be great.